All right, the 2024 municipal election is before us, and during the mayor's debate that was held by CTV News Atlantic and CBC Atlantic, had sparked a lot of concerns as there has been 16 mayorly candidates who had successfully registered and is official had decided to run for mayor, but CTV Atlantic and CBC Atlantic decided to only interview four, maybe even five out of the full 16 candidates that was officially registered to run for mayor. And I got to say something. I had spoken to some of the mayorly candidates who were not on that selective list. And I got to tell you something right now. I had heard back from them. It had made them upset. When I looked at it, it reminds me of a lot like what President Donald Trump would say during the presidential election when he would call it a rigged election. Because when you see CTV News Atlantic and the CBC News Atlantic only interviewing four or five out of the 16 candidates that have been selected to run for mayor of Halifax, these people are people who have successfully registered to be allowed to run for mayor, and they had done that. And here's CTV and CBC News Atlantic only airing four out of five out of the 16 candidates that had successfully decided to run for mayor. I mean, when you see CTV News Atlantic doing what they had done along with CBC, it creates an unequal election playing field for all candidates to be equal to this municipal election. And unfortunately, from what we can see, there's nothing much that can be done to stop it. I mean, just a couple days ago on Thursday night, St. Mary's University had another mayor's debate. Only three or four out of the 16 candidates again was selected to go. What happened to the other candidates? Why are they not there? I mean, when you looked at Andy Fillmore and Wayne Mason, they're literally running neck to neck with one another. In spite that Wayne Mason or Andy Fillmore is more likely going to win this next municipal election, it doesn't matter. The moral of the story is this election is not fair. It's not equal. People, in my opinion, should be speaking up, voicing their anger. I voiced to the clerk's office in City Hall, why don't we just stop the election and restart it? Address the media. If you're not going to interview the entire 16 candidates that are running for mayor, don't host the mayor's debate at all. It's not rocket science. What are they doing? They're doing something that shouldn't be allowed. Put it this way: this here should not be allowed. What's taking place should not be allowed to happen. And they're doing this. They're doing something what they shouldn't be allowed to be doing because, in my opinion, if I was one of the candidates running for mayor, I talk to my lawyer. I talk to my lawyer and say, look, CTV and CBC is hurting my campaign. They're not being equal as fair as what they should be as they are with the rest of the candidates. And then in a way, when you look at it, the word discrimination can actually be added in this category. I mean, are the candidates being discriminated against? Why are they not all invited to attend this mayor's debate during this 2024 Halifax municipal election? This is a very good topic that needs to be addressed because, in my opinion, this is my opinion. If the media, CTV or CBC, is not going to invite all the candidates to come out, maybe the media shouldn't be allowed to be hosting these mayorly debates at all, or even any of the councilors elections, I should say, because this here is a very good point to be bringing up. This here is very pretty much is a rigged election when you look at this. When I heard back from some of the candidates, they had agreed with what I had stated. Two out of the candidates that I had emailed. I emailed every single one of the mayorly candidates: Andy Fillmore, Wayne Mason, Pam Lovelace, whatever you call her, you name it. I emailed every one of them, and I heard from a few mayorly candidates, and they had voiced their dissatisfaction of what they had seen and experience from the press. And maybe it's time for a change up at CTV Atlantic. They got to change up their producers here. Or because see, Steve Murphy, as far as I understand, was the person that was hosting the mayor's debate for CTV. But I don't think he was the guy that orchestrated it. You know what I mean? He's just whatever. But at the end of the day, you know, things got to be better here because what just transpired with CTV and the CBC Atlantic should not have happened. Nobody should face that. And unfortunately, what we seen should not have happened because here's the thing: when we see our state of Halifax with Halifax Council the way it is. When I spoke to Pam Lovelace in Musquodoboit Harbour at the councillors' debate between David Hinsby and Will Gilligan, uh, the word incompetent had been hanging over Halifax Regional Council. People had voiced their pleasures with David Hinsby as a councillor, but they also voiced their concerns that they had been facing on the eastern shore of the Halifax region. And one of the topics that came up by a senior in Musquodoboit Harbour was the amalgamation hanging over the heads of Halifax Regional Council. And both David Hinsby and Will Gilligan had stated the odds of the province approving or allowing the Eastern Shore to separate from the Halifax Regional Municipality is highly unlikely going to happen because they had stated if it was to happen, the Eastern Shore region would basically go bankrupt. If they were to go back and looking at the Halifax County, basically what they had said, the Halifax County would basically go bankrupt. And I would unfortunately would agree with that. That would happen because they're displeased because all their money that they're paying out on taxes is basically being invested in downtown Halifax and in the city cores of the HRM, the Halifax region. And here they are living in Musquodoboit Harbour, Porters Lake, Lake Echo, what's it, Jador, Tangier. They had a mayor's debate in Moja River a couple of weeks ago. And now I don't know if that mayor's debate was a large turnout or not, but there was a mayor's debate in Moja River. And it's good that the mayorly candidates get out through the HRM. But, the word public transit had been an issue on the Eastern Shore. And like I mentioned, Councillor David Hinsby at the at the councillors' debate in Musquodoboit Harbour between David Hinsby and Will Gilligan. And one of the things that I had stated was in 2012, when it was announced that the community of Porters Lake was going to get a rapid transit service, public transit service for the community of Porters Lake, which was supposed to be serving Musquodoboit Harbour, Porters Lake, and the community of Minesville, where the bus was supposed to travel straight to the Dartmouth Bridge Terminal across the street from the Sathman Sportsplex, the former Dartmouth Sportsplex, whatever you want to call it. And it's supposed to go on its journey onto the downtown Halifax and in its route in front of Scotia Square. Good hours of operation. The first bus leaving Porters Lake is 5:47, and then the next bus is 6 o'clock, 6:30, 7:05, and then there's another bus at 7:20, and then the final bus for the morning is 7:55 a.m. So there's pretty good hours of operation to get people to and from work if they want to use it. But when you look at the community of the Eastern Shore in the morning, if you're standing on exit 20, looking down on the William Porter overpass, you'll see a lot of cars coming from Musquodoboit Harbour, East Chesapeake, ignoring the Porters Lake Park and Ride and just going on with their way. And when you look at the change of things with the high prices of gas, so gas is starting to rise again. You would think in today's economy with the inflation going through the roof again, you would think that people would start looking at other alternatives to get to and from work, such as public transit. And here's Porter's Lake with two public transit buses. The rapid bus, like I said, that will run right through Porter's Lake, right into the Dartmouth Bridge Terminal, across the parking lot from the Dartmouth Sports Satsman Center, whatever you call it, the former Dartmouth Sportsplex, and it'll go on its route to downtown Halifax and in its route at Scotia Square. People are virtually, the people of the Eastern Shore who could use that bus is virtually ignoring it, abusing it nonetheless. And here's the other bus that the Eastern Shore has, the Porter's Lake service. It goes from the bus route number 401 that will travel along Porter's Lake along the number 7 highway that will go from Porter's Lake, Lake Echo, and through East Preston, and will go into to Coal Harbor, and in its route in Dartmouth at the Portland Hills Bus Terminal. Now, here's the thing. And this has been a factor with the 401 bus service right from the start. The community of East Preston have been keeping that bus alive, and it's them who's accessing that bus more than anybody else within Porter's Lake and Lake Echo. I mean, if it wasn't for the community of East Preston, I'm going to tell you the truth. They lose their bus. Put it that way, they would lose their bus due to low ridership, and every public transit is all based on ridership. It's 14 passengers per trip. For it to be successful, the 401 bus service that travels along the number 7 highway through Porter's Lake, Lake Echo, and East Preston, and ends its bus route at the Portland Hills Bus Terminal. It has 12 to 13 passengers per trip, and it's 14 passengers to be successful. So you can say it's successful, but it's below the requirements for a public transit to be successful in a community. And again, like I said, the reason why it's successful is because the community residents of East Preston are keeping that bus alive. So all those bus users that uses the bus in the community of Porter's Lake and Lake Echo, you guys should be taking your hats off and showing gratitude to the community of East Preston, because it's the community of East Preston's residents who's keeping that bus afloat. And it took them pretty 30 years to get a weekend service, and they finally got their weekend service. But again, it all depends on ridership. If you're going to use it, if you're not going to use it, it adjusts to accordingly to what's going on around them. And if the bus is getting low ridership, you're getting poor hours of service, and eventually your public transit will be discontinued. And the Eastern Shore had many bus services that was discontinued in the past, like the Zinc line that once served. It ran from Sherbrooke through Porter's Lake, Lake Echo, East Preston, and into Dartmouth, I believe it ran. It was discontinued due to low ridership. Here's the concern, what I noticed with the community of Musquodoboit Harbor. I'm not taking jabs at them personally. This is what I have actually seen and witnessed. See, I lived on the Eastern Shore a majority of my life. I went to school at Eastern Shore District High from 1997 to 1999. And I'm going to tell you something. The people of the Eastern Shore will say they want this and they want that, but they won't actually use the service that they've been pushing for. They're saying they want a public transit in the community of Musquodoboit Harbor. Now, here's the thing. If they're just going to say we want the bus service and not actually get on it, it's not going to work. You're going to lose that bus service as fast as you get on. And that's what's happening in the community of Musquodoboit Harbor. That's why Halifax Transit is unsure, because basically what they're doing is they're looking at the ridership that they're getting from Porter's Lake. And they look at Lake Echo. They already know that the community of East Preston is keeping that 401 bus service alive. So does that mean that the Halifax Transit looks at cutting out the communities of Porter's Lake and Lake Echo and just have the 401 bus service just go along as far as East Preston and right around where Brooks Drive is, where Keith Colwell's former MLA office, shall the bus turn back to Dartmouth along the number 7 highway and back into the city instead of continue on its route through Lake Echo and Porter's Lake? It didn't happen yet, but I'm going to tell you something. That's something that very well could happen. All Halifax Transit has to do is just give the 401 another bus route to go along so it can fill those vacant communities that it once served. That very well can happen. Halifax Transit can very well do it if they want to. So basically, the people of like Echo and Porters Lake, they got to get more active with their public transit. Put it this way: the 370, it's only getting 5, 6 passengers per trip, and like I said before, it's 14 passengers per trip. And you know how that bus is not continued. I'm going to tell you something. I really don't. It's just mind-boggling. I'm surprised that that this continuation hasn't happened yet. And now, here's the flip of the coin. Now, in 2012, it was announced that, and I said before, Porters Lake, Muscatobit Harbor, and the community model was supposed to get a rapid transit service, the Metro X, the 370. The bus route number is 370. Porters Lake, it was announced that Porters Lake, Muscatobit Harbor, and the community of Minesville was supposed to get a park and ride constructed for their communities. Here it is, 2024. Muscatobit Harbor never had no park and ride constructed. The community of Minesville was told a million times it was coming. Here we are in 2020. It's still not there. But only Porters Lake received a park and ride to be constructed in their community that some people are using. So what happened to the communities of Muscatobit and the community of Minesville? I reached out to David Hensby, the community councilor. He's been council member for the District 2 since 2003. And he had stated people got to call 311. They got to call Halifax Transit. They got to voice their concerns. We want a public transit park and ride constructed in our community. So I contacted Mr. Dave Boudreau, manager for Halifax Transit, and asked him on what happened to the Porters Lake Park and Ride for the communities of Muscatobit Harbor and Minesville. He had stated, now this is his word. Now David Hensby disagrees with what I'm about to tell you. Now now everybody's entitled to their opinion, so I'm going to respect David Hensby's, and I'm going to voice what Dave Boudreau stated. The park and ride that was promised for the community of Muscatobit Harbor was discontinued. As of right now, it's not happening. Now, he did not say they're never going to receive it or anything like that. He just said the park and ride that was slated to be constructed in the community of Muscatobit Harbor, which was more likely looked at the Muscatobit Harbor Industrial Park. That's where I would assume where it would go, someplace fast and quick so the bus can get on and off the highway fast so people can get to their cars. That's where I would assume it would go. But he had stated that park and ride for the community of Muscatobit Harbor was discontinued. Now, for the community of Minesville, Mr. Dave Boudreau has stated that's still up in the air. It's still being debated. The bureaucrats, it's still in their hands. The land did not transfer from the province or from the private property owner into the hands of the city. That did not happen. He stated that he doesn't know what's going on as what it is of it right now. But he had stated the community of Minesville is still on the books. My concern with this 370, with this delay, with the community of Minesville not having their park and ride constructed, this is impacting the ridership of the bus. Porters Lake was labeled as a community as what it's not. It was labeled as the next big thing. Halifax is the next downtown Halifax. No. Porters Lake had grown significantly over the years, but it could support public transit, a successful public transit if people were dedicated to it. But from what I've seen, they're not dedicated to it. I mean, if you're going to rate Porters Lake, here it is at Porters Lake. I'm going to tell you something. Porters Lake. When you got Porters Lake, what does they got? They got two things. It is two things. It's a rich community and it's a middle class community. And if you're poor, if you're low income, you stand out like a sore thumb. You really do. And when you look at the design of Porters Lake, it's all designed to take everybody down to the Porters Lake Shopping Plaza. I call it downtown Porters Lake. Where you see the Porters Lake Shopping Plaza, the Home Hardware, the Lawtons, the Tim Hortons, Subway, the Porters Lake Superstore, the former Lakeview School, elementary school. I call that downtown Porters Lake. And that's exactly what it is. It's downtown. And it has a link that goes from the number 7 highway, right along, it's called the William Porter Connector, and it connects right to the 107 highway. So obviously, it's not rocket science on where to put the public transit, the rapid bus service. But the community of Porter's Lake, I wouldn't say is dedicated enough as what they say it is. See, here's the thing. Back in January, David Hinsby seen this. He could agree to it. During the community meeting at the Porter's Lake Community Center, they were trying to put the option of constructing sidewalks along the Porter's Lake Shopping Plaza, along the side of the 107, the number 7 highway, I should say. People didn't want the sidewalks because they didn't want to pay more money out on taxes because they're just stretched. They can't go anymore when it comes to taxes right now, and I can understand that. But the community of Sheet Harbor has sidewalks. But the community of Sheet Harbor has private sponsors that's paying for that. And that's what David Hinsby said. Maybe that's something they should look at. And I say, yes, that's correct. But I would also state, if they're going to do that, obviously it's just the corporations who want it because it wouldn't be mentioned because the city wouldn't go out there if that's the case. If the shopping plaza, Super Loblaws, if they want sidewalks in that area, let them pay for it. Don't leave the people on hook for it. All right, that's a great idea. But when it comes to politics, you really got to watch how things are done when it comes to politics. Because if you're not careful, they will lowball you. They'll do stuff when you're not looking. They'll do stuff under the table that you may not see or be aware of. And like I said before, earlier in this podcast, amalgamation that came up. Now I want to say something. When you looked at amalgamation with the Eastern Shore back in the day, now here's the thing. John Savage did it. He was the one that was responsible for amalgamation. That's correct with these liberals. And Keith Cole was the Eastern Shore MLA at the time. Sucks to be him. Before John Savage did it, Premier Bob Buchanan, if I can even pronounce his name right, Premier Bob Buchanan with the Conservative Party of Nova Scotia was going to do the amalgamation long before John Savage actually did it. So that just proves that the NDP, the Conservative Party and the Nova Scotia Liberal Party were all in cahoots getting this all set up. But when I talked to Daryl Dexter about this back in 2005, I should say, I met with him in his office before he became Premier of Nova Scotia, and he had stated, said, Adam, I'm going to be truthful to you. The odds of getting a bill passed calling for demalgamation in the legislature is slim to none. You don't see it happening because he said, the situation where the NDP is at right now, chances are they're not going to be able to be successful enough to pull this off. But he has stated that he does agree that amalgamation was done in a way that how it shouldn't have been. And, he stated, there's a lot of stuff that went down that shouldn't have went down. And he has stated, look at the people of the community. They never even had a say on it. They didn't even have a vote on it. There's the big problem. They had no say. They had no vote. So that means the amalgamation was done illegally. You look at the other Nova Scotia communities that they try to amalgamate. Truro, New Glasgow. What was the other surrounding town? What was it? I forget the other name of the community. The community said no. They didn't push for it. That was the end of it. So why couldn't Eastern Shore have that option too? Why was it done? Wrote the community residents of the Eastern Shore not having a say on it. See what's wrong with that? A lot of things wrong with that. So when I look at that, I got to say, there's a lot of pros and cons of politics today. Because, like I said, at at the councilors debate I went to in Muscatobit Harbor, I stated, here's the problem. There's people being elected who shouldn't be elected in the first place. That's exactly what's happening. And I stated, when people vote, they're voting for the better of their community. And when the government in office overvoices their voice, why are we voting for it if that's the case? So we're not living in a democracy setting. We're living in a capitalism society we're living in. It's very concerning because there's a lot of pros and cons that being people, the things that take place. My opinion, here's what I've been saying for years on my other podcast, that people have been elected to both the legislature and City Hall during Halifax Regional Council, including even in Ottawa and Parliament Hill. People have been elected to office who should never have been elected in the first place. Well, maybe you could add Steve Stretch's name in there. I think Steve Stretch was a good guy over the years, but here's the thing. I heard people saying, no, he could be quite insulting at times. And I talked to some of those people and said, well, did you ever speak to Steve Stretch about what you just said? You're concerned about how he can be insulting at times, how you can be taken back by him at times. They never got on that. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. I know one person did. And I said, well, as long as you say it properly, perhaps Steve Stretch will get the message. Well, let's put it this way. He's not in City Hall no more. He ran federally. He lost against Peter Stauffer. When was it? 2004? Peter Stauffer and Steve Stretch ran head-to-head with one another. And he ran. Did he run provincially? I don't know. I don't think he ran provincially. Or did he? And he lost. I think he did, and he lost. I mean, well, maybe that's the reason why he's losing. What like people just said. I mean, they found him insulting. They didn't find him appropriate to be the representative much longer. Because look at Peter Stauffer. The man goes down in history of one of Canada's all-time greats, member of Parliament in history of Canada. He's right up there with Pierre Trudeau. He really is. I mean, we all have our dislikings with people. This is my opinion over the years that I had noticed. Party politics at provincial and federal levels had just been making people's situations worse, not better, worse. And when you look at this 2024 municipal election, majority of the topics that people are talking about is provincial topics. Affordable housing, forest fire issues. I mean, like I said, here's the province of Nova Scotia. They got to rely on New Brunswick Premier Blaine Higgs to get a water bomber because the Nova Scotia government just can't put two and two together. Perhaps we should purchase our own water bomber. You don't need 1,000 water bombers. Maybe one or two is all you need. Store it at the Halifax International Airport in one of the hangars. That's the province's hangar for their water bomber. And it's not rocket science, But at the end of the day, when I looked at the issues that are taking place during the 2024 municipal election, including the mayor's race, it's all provincial topics. They're talking about affordable housing. I mean, affordable housing was in crisis 30 years ago, not 10, 20 years ago like how we're talking today. Affordable housing was in crisis 30 years ago. When I left high school at Eastern Shore District High in June of 1999, when I started out in the world for the first time on my own, I looked for a place to live. Couldn't do it. At the time, rent at most was $800-900 a month. Now I heard some people were telling me it's like $3,000 a month for some places. So, I don't know what to tell people. And the majority, and here's the other thing, when people are complaining about the cost of everything that's going on in this world, and then their problems, how they'll say, oh, we're going to vote Tim Houston out and all this stuff. We heard that many times. With Stevie McNeil, here's a prime example. What's the first thing they do? They vote him back in. They said that with Rodney McDonald. They voted him back in. They disliked Mayor Peter Kelly and just before his last race, he ran away from Mike Savage. They voted him in. And you hear them talking on the Todd Vino show and all these local community radio stations. Oh, we don't like this person. Oh my God, this and that. What's the first thing they do? They back the bad talk him on the news, but they vote him back in. And the problem what I've seen is people are not sticking to their guns. They're voting how they shouldn't be, because when you look at Nova Scotia's history, it just flips back and forth. Liberal, Tory, liberal, Tory, liberal, Tory, liberal, Tory. That's been going on for years. Once they voted different. That was with the NDP with Darrell Dexter. They didn't like him. I'll admit Darrell Dexter didn't live up to how he advertised him to be. He wasn't what they uh, expected. And then unfortunately, Daryl Dexter went out within the first 4 year term. And then here's Stephen McNeil and Porter's Lake at the Porter's Lake Community Hall. That's connected to the new Porter's Lake Elementary School. He bad talked to Daryl Dexter, saying, "I predicted a one-term government Daryl Dexter's NDP was going to be." Stevie McNeil was actually a worse premier than Daryl Dexter, believe it or not. Stevie McNeil should not have gotten past his first 4 year term. A 4 year term is as far as Stevie McNeil should have gotten. And really, the only reason why how Steve McNeil got a second 4 year term is because the Conservatives did not have a good leader in place at the time. But for some reason, I mean, no offense to Jamie Bailey. I mean, he's definitely a good guy, even though he got in hot water himself. But I don't know. He just couldn't connect right with the people. There was something wrong. But the moral of the story is Stevie McNeil should not have gotten a second 4 year term. Put it that way. He should not have gotten it. But, but then again, when you looked at Steve McNeil's Liberals, he had problematic people going in office. My MLA at the time was Kevin Murphy. Me and him didn't like each other. He insulted me, and I got mad at him. I confronted him on it. So Kevin Murphy got mad. He phoned the police. Sergeant Bill Casey arrived at my door, and I remember talking to him. And the officer was pretty good, and he was a good guy. And he said, "Adam, what did Kevin Murphy say to you to make you angry?" Because he said, "Here's the thing. We understand what you're saying." Because I said, the officer said this here. I want to tell you something. We already know that Kevin Murphy can be insulting, a very insulting person. And he stated, "Did he say anything to you to make you mad? Because here's the thing right now. We're going to talk to him. We're going to make a file on this." And he has stated, "We're going to advise him to watch what he's saying to you and others out in the community, because if it doesn't stop, we're going to charge him." And he stopped. But the officer stated, "See, Adam, when you got angry at him, he's scared of you." And he said, "As of right now, I have to ensure the security of both you and Kevin Murphy." And ever since that day, Kevin Murphy was more respectful of myself and others out in the community. He was not as insulting as he once was when he first went in. A police officer had to go confront him. That should never happen with anybody. And here he was connected with Steve McNeil's Liberals at the time. Keith Caldwell. There's another one. When he was the MLA for the Eastern Shore and throughout the community of Preston, riding, he was the MLA twice for the Eastern Shore and for the community of Preston. He was known for making politics personal, real personal. If you know him, if you knew him, if he was your MLA and if you had another election sign in your yard, he'd make a file on that. And he would hold grudges against people. He wouldn't represent them as equal as all the rest of the community, which sparks another concern. How do the community residents have insurances that their MLA is going to represent them fairly and as equal as his own party supporters? Where is the referee that gets involved to ensure those insurances that people are receiving equal opportunity representations from their MLA regardless of their politics? That's a good. And really, there's no rules in place that protect the people from the politicians. The only rules there is protecting the politicians from the people, but there's nothing protecting the people from the politicians. And again, it creates a lot of concern when it comes to party politics. And Keith Caldwell was known for getting real nasty with people because your politics was not, because you weren't a supporter of his, because your politics was just different than his. And in, when was it, in 2020? He announced, was it 2020 when he announced he was retiring? But before that, he had stated he was going to run again. Well, see, I already know the answer to that. me and Keith butted heads big time. Because I would confront Keith about how he makes his politics personal with people. He get real nasty with people. Got to the point, I voiced it to Ian Rankin, the premier at the time. Suddenly, here's Keith Caldwell stating that he's going to retire. Now, what happened there? I want to tell you what happened. Keith Caldwell was an MLA in a community that he never lived in. He should never have been an MLA out there. The reason why he ran for the MLA for the Nova Scotia Liberal Party for the community of Preston riding was because when he was the MLA for the Eastern Shore, he lost his seat big time to Bill Dukes because his party was responsible for amalgamation, and people did not like John Savage, and people on the Eastern Shore had strongly felt that Keith Caldwell could have represented their community a lot better than what he had done. And one of the topics that people had on the Eastern Shore with Keith Caldwell as their MLA at the time was that he wasn't a very good voice for their community. He would act when it was too late. And people just had enough. When the amalgamation went through, they voted Keith out. So Keith goes to the community of, he joins the Preston riding for the Nova Scotia Liberal Party, and he runs out in the community of Preston. Gets elected. He almost lost it, actually, but he won by, 25 votes against David Hensby. He just squeaked by. But ever since, when me and Keith butted heads, that was the end of Keith's career. Ian Rankin basically drew Keith out, and he basically just told him, look, we want somebody from the community of Preston to represent their own community. Keith won, and I agree with that, because Keith Caldwell should never have been there, because he was taking opportunities away from its own community. And he really was. I mean, I don't know if I label Keith as a bad person, but I label him as somebody, I'm not too sure if I would give him the nomination to run for any party. Because if he's making his politics too personal to the point, he's real nasty because your politics are different than his. He's not respecting democracy. He's not respecting the voice of the people. And if you can't do that, then it means he's a complete insult to the very heart of democracy. This person should not be allowed to be there. My grandfather is a Second World War veteran. He fought for your right to cast your vote, to have your opinion on how you choose to have your politics. He fought against people like Keith Caldwell for holding grudges against people because your politics was different than his. Where does Keith get the idea to think that he has that right to do that to people? He has no right to do that. And when you looked at how the community got since the days that I could remember, the provincial and federal politics, things weren't getting better. They're getting worse. Seems like it doesn't matter who you put in that office. Things are getting worse. Now, with the 2024 municipal election, like I said, majority of the topics were all provincial topics. Affordable housing. Now, here's the thing. 2016, the housing crisis started up again. And the city allowed these homeless people, their shelters, to live on city property. So as soon as the municipal election was over, what's the first thing Mike Savage did? Phoned the police and had them removed by force. And I remember NDP leader Gary Burrows standing there in disbelief, shaking his head. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. People being arrested, their homes, their shelters being destroyed by the Halifax police. Now, mind you, the Halifax police is the worst police agency, the most corrupt police agency in the history of Canada. There's police officers that were caught discriminating against people because of their race, gender, treating people unfairly. You had police officers that were married to judges, prosecution. Where's the equal justification here when you have that? Many people sued the Halifax police and were actually successful at winning their cases. So when a person sues the Halifax police and when they're successful at it, that means the taxpayer got to pay out. So when that happens, so now the question is, what's being done to ensure people that their police agency is being disciplined properly? Here's the first thing that I noticed with the Halifax police. They would promote corrupt police officers. Now they just promoted a new police chief of police. I believe his name is Don McLean. Now I can't really comment, say anything negative about him because I don't really know much about him. But I know one thing that government governments, I should say, are known for promoting people to places on job titles that they shouldn't be because they don't deserve it. They didn't work for it. And when I looked at the chief of police being appointed by Halifax Council, first thing that came to my mind is this a good cop or is this a bad cop? Is this a corrupt cop? Is he just some cop, a lazy cop that's just here looking for an easy paycheck? I'm concerned about that because here's a Halifax police with a major black guy out in the community. And I had questioned the Halifax Council. Why isn't Halifax Council looking at doing the Albies? Dissolving the Halifax police as an agency, the whole thing, just dissolve it. Only the province can do it. And again, it goes back to the province. They don't act on anything until the situation is in crisis. They're only looking after one person, themselves. My opinion with Tim Houston. I'm going to tell you my opinion with Tim Houston right now. The only thing that's going to save Tim Houston in the next provincial election is that the Nova Scotia Liberal Party has no good leader. Zach Churchill is not a good Liberal leader. And Claudia Chandler of the NDP, she's just not leadership material. And I had said this in the past to the NDP party. I picked up the phone, I called them. I said, if the NDP wants to go in power, they got to call Peter Stauffer. They got to call Peter Stauffer and just ask him, what is it going to take to get you out of retirement and run for the Nova Scotia NDP party? A very strong voice, a very leadership capability that man has. And we all know when Peter Stauffer lost to Daryl Sampson in 2015, it was a complete fluke. Daryl Sampson should never have gotten in Ottawa. He should never have beaten Peter Stauffer. No, the only reason why Peter Stauffer lost his seat to Daryl Sampson is because the NDP in Ottawa had supported the long gun registration. And here's Peter Stauffer with his entire riding with people with guns that are not even registered. We're not talking handguns. We're talking rifles, shotguns, stuff like that. And people often say, oh, my God, a person got a gun. They're dangerous. It's just the end of the world. Now, here's the thing. If people let's say they want to rob the bank, you want to hide it. It's kind of hard to hide a rifle or a shotgun. It's you know what I mean? If you're going to rob a bank, let's say rob a bank, you're going to use a handgun. You're not going to use a shotgun or a rifle, something like that. You want to hide it. So obviously, I wouldn't. People in governments make things worse than what it actually is because the topic with long gun registration was a big money maker. Government can make lots of money here, but it was just a money racket for the federal government. People just got fed up with it, and they weren't willing to pay all this money out for what? If a person has a criminal record and if they're crazy, also you're not going to go give them a gun. I mean, if somebody's right nuts, are you going to give them the key to the prime minister's office and let them walk in freely? No. And here's the other thing. People with mental health, shouldn't they be banned with firearms? Because those are the people that are liable to, do something with a firearm that they're not supposed to. They shouldn't be doing. But at the end of the day, like I said, party politics makes things worse than what they actually do any good. But back to this mayor's election. What this thing with CTV not bringing all of the 16 candidates before the debate. It sparked a lot of anger out in the community, a lot of dissatisfaction in the community. I mean, I've been getting after candidates about them not looking appropriate when they're dressing. They look very sloppy, they're rough, they're scruffy. And here they're knocking on your doors. And I told them and many times in my podcast, if you're going to run for office, you have to look presentable. And when you look at them, what do you see? Some of them actually shaped up when I got after them about it. So that's a sign that, we're doing something we shouldn't be. But what CTV News Atlantic had done and the CBC News Atlantic had done, they shouldn't have done it. If you're going to hold a debate, invite everybody out. Now, I can't say Maybe they did bring everybody up. Maybe they asked people to all the candidates come up. But from the feedback what I'm getting back from some of the candidates, they had stated that they weren't invited. They didn't know about it. One candidate told me that there was a debate at St. Mary's University. They boycotted it because they felt insulted. So that again, like I said, with CTV News Atlantic, if they're insulting people with their debates on how they're doing it, maybe they gotta draw the line and say we gotta go back and do our homework because we're doing something wrong here, making people angry. And when I looked at the words of President Donald Trump, a rigged election, that's exactly what this is. It's a rigged election. You're letting corporations run merely debates. That's highly insulting to the community and is highly concerning in the community. And there's no equal living playing field for all the candidates. So yeah, I'm very concerned. And the other thing is, here's the thing there now. I got nothing against Andy Fillmore. I mean, I wish Andy Fillmore all the best of luck in this mayor's race. But here's the thing. He's a former member of parliament. He resigned because, see, when you see a member of parliament resign or any government official resigning, it usually means that their government's about to fall from power. They rather go leave before they lose in defeat. And the NDP party had done it. Some of the Nova Scotia Liberal Party members had done it just before Ian Rankin lost to Tim Houston. You start seeing Nova Scotia Liberal Party MLAs resigning all of a sudden because they knew that they're going to go down. That's what they do. And that's what Andy Fillmore did, which I don't care. But my concern is Andy Fillmore has every liberal, every conservative known to man jumping on his bandwagon to ensure that he's elected as mayor. Here it is, a municipal election. That's a concern. These Liberal Party people needs to get out of the way. Go away. Leave the Halifax election alone. It's corrupt. It's I don't know what's this. Lots of conflict involved. When Mike Savage got elected as mayor in 2012, I noticed things right off the bat. Three things that was a concern. A, he was a millionaire before he became mayor. Wealthy. How can Mike Savage address poverty when the man's a millionaire? How is that humanly possible? He can't. He doesn't have the mental mortality to ever do it. I mean, well, his days as mayor is pretty well over now. But the second thing that I know was wrong with Mike Savage, he's the office assistant. That was the former Prime Minister Paul Martin's assistant in Ottawa. Cheryl Stewart's son, he jumped on Mike Savage's bandwagon. Great big government jobs, great big everything. No reality of what the average person in the community is going through, their finances, no care in the world. And then another guy. Here's my third concern. Josh Briggs jumps aboard. Josh Briggs' father was a Liberal MLA, I believe, with John Savage. And people shook their heads when they seen Josh Briggs there. I wasn't educated about Josh Briggs at the time, and I had nothing against him. And he treated me pretty good, but he was too much up Mike Savage's backside. Let's put it this way: so far up Mike Savage's backside, it was concerning. I mean, when you see those kind of people on the job site, they're sucking up to the managers, they cause trouble. Those people are well not liked. Usually, those people, when they leave their jobs, usually they've been set up to be fired. A lot of people on the job site don't like them. They're not trusted. Those are the people that are well not liked. And Josh Briggs was basically people to stay away from him. No, just don't bother. And that was the other concern. But when it was announced, when they released Cheryl Stewart's and Josh Briggs' finances, what I seen, it was very poor. What was it? Cheryl Stewart only getting, what was it, 12,000 for the year, and Josh Briggs was like 14, 15,000 for the year as the mayor's assistant. Not very much. It's just the way. See, it's just the way how they go on, how they advertise themselves. They advertise themselves. They're more uh, ahead of the line than all the rest. That was what I got from them. Not very tuned in to what's going on out in the community around them. Here we are in a housing crisis and all this stuff. So Cheryl Stewart left City Hall because I got after her and Mike Savage about it, and Josh Briggs was offered a job in Ottawa with Justin Trudeau, one of the members of Parliament. So he left City Hall. I was actually glad for that. But this 2024 election, things happened what shouldn't have happened. I mean, if I was the candidate, I'd seriously talk to a lawyer. Look at suing CTV. See, one of the things what the candidates can do is they can all join up with a lawyer, one private lawyer, go after CTV because if they were to do that, if they want to sue CTV, it's not going to be so costly for a lawsuit. Y'all can get chipped in on this together. Talk to a lawyer. See, look, we want to sue CTV Atlantic for unfair how they ran this mayor's debate. They make the point across. Perhaps the courts could ask or order City Hall, the clerk's office, not to allow the press, the media, to address this mayor's debate ever again. Not allowed to host it. Let the community host it. Why can't the community host it? They had it at Muscatava Harbor. It was successful. It was civilized. So why can't any results do it? So, there's a lot of things that have been transpiring during this municipal 2024 mayor's debate. But at the end of the day, are things going to happen? Only you, because the power is in your hands.